Welcome to this episode of the MBL Blitz podcast. It is November 12th, 2016, and we are just now passing through week 4 of the MBL. I'm your host, Spencer Murray, of course, and we've got a lot on the docket today. First off, I'm going to hit this Broncos-Raiders rivalry and talk about their week 3 matchup they had there. I'm going to also touch on Derek Carr and how he's faring so far in the MBL over the last 2 seasons. After that, I've got some insider information on this Jets quarterback controversy between Christian Hackenberg and Geno Smith. Next on the docket, we've got the Seahawks and their offensive struggles, and also how their rookie Titus Roth is faring so far this season. I'm also going to touch on the Chiefs quarterback Trey McIntyre and how him getting sacked so much this season is going to be a big problem and what needs to be changed quick. Last but not least, I'm going to hit some of the aging players here in the MBL and how it's going to affect the tail end of their careers. Now, with our first story, like I mentioned before, we're going to hit on the Broncos and Raiders game of week 3. Both of the owners had a little bit of a rivalry there. They kind of nagged each other on over social media and through little private sources, and it was entertaining for the other owners to keep and watch. But the game itself was an ugly one. The Broncos came out with a win. Derek Carr, 0 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 103 yards on the day. Paxton Lynch himself, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 201 yards on the day. Both quarterbacks having a very, very hard time back in the pocket. Rushing stats, there wasn't many. Latavius Murray there had 5 yards on 6 carries, and the Broncos had a total of 34 rushing yards through their players. Corey Roth, cornerback, rookie. Everyone thought it was going to take him a while to grasp the game. A lot of talent. Great player in college. Huge play in this game. 74-yard pick 6. Definitely made his name known there for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Through week 4, he's looking pretty good there. Viliami Lemur, safety there for Denver, also making his name known. Got a 49-yard interception return. Didn't quite get it back to the end zone, but he still snagged it out of the air and got quite a few yards behind it. My top player of this game is going to go to John Potter. He was 3 for 4. He did miss a field goal, but not very many people think of him as an accurate, powerful kicker. He's towards the bottom of the totem pole, not very well known. Huge leg, but that's pretty much about it. And this dude booted a 56-yard field goal, which is pretty big. And he pretty much won them the game, 9 points by himself. Got it done. And Denver, I believe now, is 2-0 under new ownership with Porter. Week 17 of last season, or so towards the end of the last season, the Broncos and the Raiders locked up. And Paxton Lynch he was 15 of 21 and 3 touchdowns. I can't quite remember the yardage, but he had a day. The Broncos also came out with a win there, 27-23. So Porter is making his name well known, even though the NBL Live game didn't look to show that much. The Broncos are up and down this season, and definitely the AFC West is a very winnable division for any of these teams. Since we're speaking of the Raiders, I'm going to go ahead and touch on Derek Carr. There's been a hashtag started slowly and quietly, but it's hashtag CARROVERRATED. The big question is Derek Carr overrated? And I've got some stats to back up that yes, he is. So far this year, he's thrown 4 touchdowns and 11 interceptions with a 69.4 QBR. Broken down into averages, he's averaging 1 touchdown to 3 interceptions per game so far this season. Looking back to last season, he was injured a few games, I believe, and he ended the season with 19 touchdowns and 20 interceptions. It's a lot better ratio than what he's dealing with right now. He also ended with an 85.1 QBR. So looking at those stats, yes, Carr is definitely having a tough year, and it looks to be getting tougher. The AFC West is finally getting used to the Raiders offense, and the other teams that the Raiders run into generally make some adjustments during the game to help combat Carr's arm. So this is where it gets interesting. The Raiders traded away Connor Cook to the Houston Texans, and Connor Cook himself replaced Carr a few games last season while Carr was hurt. Looking at those stats, the games that Connor Cook started, he had 10 touchdowns for 4 interceptions with an 108.4 QBR. Now, that looks pretty good. I don't think I personally would get rid of a quarterback with that kind of talent, or if a quarterback that's playing that well, that fast. I think I'd hold on to him just in case something were to happen to Derek Carr. Derek Carr didn't work out. Well, under new management and new coaching in Houston, Connor Cook so far this year has 4 touchdowns and 5 interceptions on an 80.9 QBR. So it's about the same level that Carr played at last year. Now, I think the big thing is that I think Carr is taking too many deep throws. You've got big receivers in Cooper and Crabtree, and I think that he needs to hold off a bit, make some smarter throws, stay closer, stick to the checkdowns, and play it safe. Yes, you've got the arm. Yes, you've got the talent. But if you're forcing it to your receivers that are having a hard time catching the ball and going up one-on-one, then you're going to throw an interception. That being said, I'm not knocking Carr's play. I'm not knocking the Raiders' play. There have been some very close games, and there have been some very dominant games. But looking at the stats, it's rough, and some things need to be done there to get Carr back on the right track. Coming up next, I'm going to hit on the Jets quarterback controversy. We had Christian Hackenberg starting the first 3 games of the season. Yet again, Geno Smith was benched in favor of another quarterback. He had some issues so far. 3 games in, 2 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 409 yards, 35.0 QBR. He was having a hard time getting the ball to anybody, especially Brandon Marshall. Looking at these stats here, for the first few games, Brandon Marshall, 3 catches for 44, 2 catches for 28. Then he had a decently good game, 4 catches for 96 yards and a touchdown. I broke down those stats, and per game, you're looking at 3 catches for 56 yards and 0.3 touchdowns. Now, enter Geno Smith, his first start in week 4. He comes in and throws for 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 223 yards. 129 of those yards were Brandon Marshall's. 3 catches, 129, and a TD. So just looking at these stats, Brandon Marshall himself looks to be more comfortable with Geno in the pocket. Hackenberg clearly has some accuracy issues, and Geno isn't really much better, but he gets the job done. The coaching staff, front office, whoever is in charge of keeping Geno in this spot needs to keep him here. If he struggles a couple games, don't pull him out and throw in Hackenberg again. Give him a chance to play through more than 10 games a season. You need to know how good your QB can play over a near full season, since you can't get a full season out of him now, but an extended amount of time, not just 2 to 5 weeks at a time. It's going to take time for him to develop, take time for him to get comfortable with his receivers, and take time to get things done. All right, now I'm going to get into the Seattle Seahawks and their offensive woes. It looks rough there in Seattle. They had a great year last year, and the defense is still playing great, but their offense just is not getting it done. Russell Wilson, 2 touchdowns for 10 interceptions, 864 yards, but he's completing 70% of his passes. So that could be a good sign, even though some of his decisions clearly look bad. Their offense, 21st in complete total offense. They only have 162 total rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. That's where we're going to get into Titus Roth, the rookie running back that, it kind of shocked everybody. Me personally, I thought that Seattle was going to take a tight end. They got rid of Jimmy Graham in the offseason, and they're missing that big target that can get it done. And there was a couple of great tight ends. One went to Houston, and another was picked up later on, I believe by Arizona. And, they went with Titus Roth, a speedy, elusive back. And they already had Rawls and Procise there. And it kind of confused me, and it confused a lot of others. And looking at the stats, it doesn't look like it's working out too well. He's not averaging very well. I think he's broke off one good run, but here in week 1, 4 for 19, week 2, 10 for 26, week 3, 2 for -3 yards, week 4, 14 for 34. It looks like there's a lot of struggles. Their O-line is definitely not getting it done. They've allowed 13 sacks. They won't open lanes for any of the running backs, and they look to be struggling. And I tapped the GM there, play a part in himself, and got a statement. It says, Titus Roth is still developing and learning the halfback position. He shows flashes, but he is leaving a lot of meat on the bone as far as getting yards. The offensive line is still trying to mesh, which is stunning our offensive output. Keep it in mind, it is only week 5, and we are still working to get better as a unit. And he is right. It is only, we're going into week 5, and there's still plenty of time to figure it out. The NFC West isn't very challenging, and the Seahawks are, they tend to dominate there. So what needs to be done is that offensive line needs to be worked in practice every day. They need to get better. And them getting better allows Russell Wilson to stay confident and get better, maybe even use his legs and get things done. Titus Roth is a lot of talent. I would hate to see a rookie benched or left off because of, the power backs can take more and the power backs can get through the tackles and pick up more yards than a speedy back around the edge. And I would really hate to see a rookie with that talent just be shipped off to another team after these offensive struggles. A fourth story I have for you guys here. I'm going to hit on Trey McIntyre and him being the most hit quarterback in the MBL. This guy's been hit a lot. As of week 4, 18 times, 10 sacks in the week 1 matchup with the Raiders. He was knocked on his back all game. It was rough, and there's a lot of issues. That week 1 game led to a week 2 horrible showing of 5 INTs and a lost fumble. He seemed to be in pain throwing over the middle. He was overthrowing receivers. He couldn't get the ball deep. Even short throws he was overthrowing, and some defenders were just waiting right there ready to snatch it out of the air. It was just floating. So after week 2, a lot was changed. I believe one of the guards was benched. The right guard was moved over. And now they are confident in their offensive line that they have. Yes, in week 3, they allowed 6 sacks to the Browns, but McIntyre himself was holding the ball too long, trying to look for deep throws because the throws short were covered. I noticed that a lot. I mean, the man averaged, he was 22 for 33 and 355. He got the player of the week after that with a huge throw to Conley to win the game. That was all over MBL Network and Twitter. And this latest game, he only got sacked once, and it wasn't bad. So it looks to be, NBL Live. It was a little rough for him offensively with the 3 interceptions, but he did complete 75% of his passes, and he was only sacked once on a corner that came untouched. So the Chiefs coaching staff is very confident they've got everything figured out. The main problem they're trying to work with, Eric Fisher, the left tackle that was given a huge contract coming into him starting with the team last season. He seems to be having a lot of issues getting, the right pass protections down and the right running lanes down. He's got the talent. He's just a little slow. And that's not in any way, a derogatory term. He's having a hard time grasping it. The QB coach has really been working with McIntyre, trying to get him to release the ball quicker and rely on his safety nets, his check downs, his flats. Quit looking deep, quit looking over the middle. You got to get the ball off, get a few yards. If you punt, you punt, but you're not getting hit. So the good news is, his whole entire college career, he wasn't injured a lot, if any. He's a very tough quarterback. He can take the hits, but sooner or later, one hit's going to be one too many, and he's going to be out for an extended amount of time. Of the day, it seems to be a pretty big thing throughout the league. Father Time himself has swooped down upon the NBL and snatched a few players for himself. Players like Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, Jamal Charles, Tamba Hali, Larry Fitzgerald. These guys are having subpar seasons, and many believe it's due to their age. Rivers himself has been benched for a rookie after the beginning of the season. He has yet to play a snap, even from an injured, or to take a break, give that young QB a break and a big lead. That's a bit alarming, I would say. Most would say he's still got talent and he's still ready to play, but he's just not getting any chances there. Jamal Charles, of course, cut by the Chiefs last offseason, signed with the Bears. He's currently averaging 3 yards a carry and 38 yards a game, which, that's the main reason the Chiefs got rid of him. He wasn't really producing like he was supposed to. Spencer Ware, he gets through the tackles. He averages 3 to 4 yards a game per carry, 3 to 4 yards per carry a game. He gets in there and he gets the job done. So Jamal Charles having yet a similar season to what he did last season looks very alarming, especially for the Bears, taking that chance and giving him all that money. Drew Brees. Saints brought in the rookie quarterback. Brees is struggling. 3 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 67.6 QBR. He's only averaging 122 yards a game. This is not the Drew Brees we're used to. We're used to, gunslinger Brees, getting the ball down the field, 250 to 350 yards a game, getting the job done. There was, he was benched one game and the rookie came in and the rookie didn't do even better, but it's alarming that Brees himself was sat and, they really want Brees to produce. They really want him to end his career in New Orleans, but the way it's looking, it might not end up that way. Tom Bahali, originally a defensive end, and Kansas City moved to a 3-4 over the years. He's currently playing linebacker, and he's lost a lot of speed. He cannot cover these drags and flats and over-the-middle routes like he used to. He's still trying to get to the quarterback, but he has yet to get a sack. He's only got 3 solo tackles on the year. He's not being very productive. D Ford comes in and does a lot more now. He's younger. I believe Howard moved into defensive tackle, and now Poe and Howard switch out, and it looks good. But over these next few seasons, look for the Chiefs to transition to a 4-3 defense, because Justin Houston is still young. Justin Houston he can cover or he can rush, but they like him back there covering. Their defensive front will be nice once they switch to a 4-3, because they'll have Howard and Poe in the middle, and they will be a force. So Holly hopefully retires after this year, because I would hate to see him stick around and just ride the bench because he won't be able to produce. Last but not least, we have Paul Posluszny here on this graphic. 3 solo tackles and 1 interception. Paul Posluszny was big, and he's usually known for getting into the plays and making tackles, even if it is just helping out. And so far this season, he's not done that. He seems slow. He seemed like he's struggling to catch up to these fast guys now, and it's hurting Jacksonville. So I would look to them to draft another linebacker here soon, or find a replacement, or even bench Posluszny here soon, because yes, he does still have the instinct and the talent, but his body's just not catching up. And sooner or later, it's going to hurt the Jags even more in their race to win the AFC South. On another note, Larry Fitzgerald, great receiver, definitely going to go down as one of the all-time greats. Last season, 53 catches for 901 yards and only 2 touchdowns. That's not normal. Usually Larry Fitz is looked to in the red zone and looked to, in those key situations to score. This year, he's not so good. I did some projections, and he's projected this year for 44 catches for 572 and no touchdowns. He's yet to catch a touchdown this year through 4 games. But it's not only on Larry Fitz. Yes, he is losing a step, but receivers still have hands. Like I mentioned with Roddy White a few episodes back. They still have hands. They still have that, they lose their speed, yes, but they still have that safety blanket mentality. And I think the main issue in Arizona is Carson Palmer. Arizona missed out on a huge chance to trade up, or attempt to trade up, to try to get one of these great QBs that came out of the draft. Palmer's struggling. The receivers themselves, Floyd, Nelson, such and such, they're not producing. Michael Floyd is only averaging 52 yards a game. Something needs to be done quick. The offense is stalling, and in that tough NFC West with the Seattle Seahawks dominating like it is, you're going to want a high-powered offense that's going to try to outweigh these tough defenses you're going to run into. And the only thing is, if Arizona keeps going the way they're going, the only good outlook is there's some good QBs in this draft too, I'm pretty sure, and they're going to have a chance to, if not snag one of the later ones, to move up for the big great one. Thank you for sticking around and listening to yet another episode of the MBL Blitz podcast. We've got the Commissioner's Corner podcast coming up in the next weekend, and I will be around the weekend after that. So at the rate we're advancing, we should be covering, the playoff race again and some other huge stories coming up on the next Blitz podcast. But, we've got the Commissioner's Corner podcast coming up. They're going to touch on Rivers and the benching there in San Diego, and I believe they're going to hit on Adrian Peterson a bit. Rumors are he's not going to be re-signed. So Balmer and Lip are going to have a lot to say of the upcoming stories here next weekend, but again, thank you guys for listening, and hope you guys are there for the next one.